Highland Square for just about as long as I've lived in Akron, which was 1972. So I've been around for a while. And used to be a community organizer. And one of the things that you learn when you go door to door is that people don't want to organize around problems. They want to organize around parties. So in 1978, a group of us in the attic of 150 Edgerton, it's the red brick house right at the end of Congress. If you take Congress past the bank and go up that driveway, that beautiful red brick house used to be part of the, oh God, I can't even remember their last names, and I hope they're both gone. But anyway, they owned that whole block, and it was first floor apartments, second floor rooms, and third floor single apartments, and I lived on the third floor. And so a bunch of us got together and said, we need to organize a festival. Because people want to have a good time. They don't want to, this was when the redevelopment program was coming in, and we could see the city's bulldozer come through. The neighborhood wasn't like talking to each other. So the first Highland Square Festival was October 1st, 1978, and it was on South Highland, between Market and Portage Path. And we called it the Highland Fling. I mean, we didn't have very much imagination, but what that enabled us to do was to hire a bagpiper to open it. And, I didn't think anything about it, except it was pretty cool if we did that. And it wasn't until years later, and this is one of those things you never know exactly what impact your actions have on other people's lives. Just no clue. I lived on Grand Avenue between Market and Exchange, 77 South Grand, and a woman that I worked with at the Beacon Journal lived above me, and she was the first woman to be hired in at the mailing room at the Beacon Journal. And anybody who knows the mailing room knows that the Teamsters do not suffer fools lightly, and they suffer women even less lightly. And so she was going through, let's just say, a particularly difficult time with, what were certifiable acts of sexual harassment. But at that point, being the only woman, who's going to stick up for her? And so for this particular woman, October 1st was a particularly dark day. And she was so distraught that she was even considering committing suicide. She was that bereft. And just as she was trying, it's like, she just about come to that point, what drifted in her window was the sound of bagpipes opening up the first ever Highland Square Festival. And I heard that story, and it was like, it didn't matter whatever else came out of that festival. And I would like to think that what we see here today is just this year's flower of that seed. The first iteration of the Highland Square festivals, and it kind of blocked all over the square. It was South Highland the first year, Casterton the second year, where we went 2 years. It got rained on the second day, so we decided, okay, God only wants this to be one day. All right. And then for several years, it was on North Highland, because there was that little triangle park. And then for several years it was down at Christie Park. But it's funny how people draw lines in their neighborhood. People kept saying Preston Highland. I live across the street from where we used to stage that festival. I dare anybody to tell me I don't live in Highland Square. However. So then it moved back up to the square, where it has been ever since, and I think belongs. I have one short story about Stan Hewitt locating where it is. One of the things I've been working on is the history of the Metro Parks, which is another wonderful, fabulous asset for this area. And one of the things that I learned early in my research is that at one time Cyberling wanted to move way out of the city. And he went to his, not his friend, it was fellow industrialist Charles Brush from the arc welding and arc light thing, and wanted to buy his farm out on Furnace Run, and brush wouldn't sell to him. And that's why he wound up closer into town, because he found somebody who would sell him enough acreage so that he could have his out-of-the-wind west side mansion. But anyway, that's, oh my goodness, talk about old friends. Well, this man has been around way even longer than I have. And he's probably got a couple of stories, but how are you, son? Okay, so, yeah. Good to see you. Anyway, that's my story. Thanks to you.